litigation. Christian Anderson wrote, "The lab escape version of this is so friggin' likely to have happened because they were already doing this type of work, and the molecular data is fully consistent with that scenario." Ian Lipkin stressed the nightmare of circumstantial evidence to assess regarding the possibility of inadvertent release, given the scale of bat coronavirus research pursued in Wuhan. Bob Gary said, "I really can't think of a plausible natural scenario where you get from the bat virus or one very similar to it to COVID-19. Today we are here to examine one of the most critical and debated questions of our time. Did COVID-19 originate in a lab? To answer this question, let's revisit the early days of the pandemic and examine what some of Dr. Anthony Fauci's inner circle said privately about the origins of the virus. Discussions that were only revealed through FOIA litigation. Christian Anderson wrote, "The lab escape version of this is so friggin' likely to have happened because they were already doing this type of work, and the molecular data is fully consistent with that scenario." Ian Lipkin stressed the nightmare of circumstantial evidence to assess regarding the possibility of inadvertent release, given the scale of bat coronavirus research pursued in Wuhan. Bob Gary said, "I really can't think of a plausible natural scenario where you get from the bat virus or one very similar to it to COVID-19, where you insert exactly 4 amino acids, 12 nucleotides, and all have to be added at the exact same time to gain this function. I just can't figure out how this gets accomplished in nature." According to Gary, it's not crackpot to suggest this could have happened given the gain-of-function research we know was happening at Wuhan. These are all private statements, which you'll discover today differ greatly from their public statements. Even Ralph Barrick, world-famous gain-of-function researcher and collaborator with Wuhan's Dr. Shi, admitted, so they, the Wuhan Institute of Virology, have a very large collection of viruses in their laboratory. And so it's, proximity is a problem. It's a problem. Federal court orders reveal that even Dr. Fauci himself privately acknowledged concerns about gain-of-function research in Wuhan and mutations in the virus that suggest it might have been engineered, just days before he commissioned the proximal origin paper. Despite these private doubts, publicly these so-called experts and their allies were dismissing the lab leak theory as a conspiracy. Within days, Anderson, Lipkin, and Gary were putting final touches on what would be remembered as one of the most remarkable reversals in modern history. In their proximal origin paper, these scientists concluded, "We do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible." Privately, they were saying one thing. Publicly, they were saying another. Media pundits parroted the narrative while social media platforms censored discussion about the lab leak, labeling it as misinformation and stifling open discourse about the virus's origins. The cover-up went beyond public statements. Federal agencies and key officials withheld and continue to conceal crucial information from both Congress and the public. For instance, Dr. David Morenz of the NIH deleted emails that could have contained valuable insights into early discussions. When he deleted them, he made the comment, "I think we're safe now." He deleted emails. He said, "The early emails I've deleted," to Peter Daszak at EcoHealth, "I think we're safe now." The ODNI failed to comply with a law that was passed unanimously. One of the senators on this committee got it passed. We were going to declassify all this and revealed it, and the administration has refused. HHS and NIH have not produced documents related to the gain-of-function research that the chairman and I requested nearly a year ago. I've been asking for 2 or 3 years as an individual member with some other Republican members and have not gotten these records. I've now asked with the Democrat chairman over a year, and they're still resisting. They say it's not gain-of-function. Well, let's hear the debate. Did they debate at NIH whether it was gain-of-function in Wuhan? If there's a debate, let's hear the scientific arguments on both sides. They will not give us that information. This has been a deliberate, prolonged effort to deceive the committee about certain gain-of-function research experiments that the agencies have been withholding. What we have found as we've gone through this is that at every step there's been resistance. So the hearing today is to try to find out whether or not we can get to the truth. Do we know for certain it came from the lab? No, but there's a preponderance of evidence indicating that it may have come from the lab. Do we know viruses have come from animals in the past? Yes, they've come from animals in the past. But this time there's no animal reservoir. There's no animal handlers with antibiotics. There's a lot of reasons why there are indications that this could well have come from the lab. This is what the discussion we'll have today. This is a discussion that's long in coming. It's been over 3 years that we've been asking for this, but this is great. This is good. We'll have scientists on both sides of this issue, and I hope we have a spirited debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranking Member Paul. It is the practice of this.
In the final minutes of today's extraordinary hearing, As Senator Rand Paul finished reading through the long-hidden private messages of scientists and officials at the center of America's COVID-19 response, the room felt suspended between revelation and reckoning. His voice, steady but edged with indignation, traced the contours of conversations the public was never meant to see. Quiet uncertainties, whispered doubts, and scientific fears shared behind closed doors during the fragile, chaotic dawn of a global pandemic. He read their words aloud. Christiane Anderson warning that a lab escape was so freaking likely, Ian Lipkin describing a nightmare of circumstantial evidence, and Robert Gary confessing he couldn't conceive of a natural pathway for the virus's unusual genetic features. These were not the polished, certain pronouncements that would soon dominate cable news and social media. These were private deliberations, raw, unsettled, and profoundly human. And as Senator Paul unfolded these letters one by one, he painted a picture of a scientific community wrestling with possibilities the world was told not to entertain. He contrasted their private doubts with their public assurances, noting how quickly their early caution transformed into a unified front dismissing the lab origin hypothesis. He spoke of pressure, of publication, of narratives crafted in the glare of politics rather than the patience of science. And whether one agrees with his conclusions or not, there was no denying the emotional weight of that contrast. The intimate honesty of private uncertainty set against the certainty projected to a world desperate for answers. In that hearing room, the deeper question hung heavily in the air. What does it mean when institutions tasked with guiding us through crisis speak differently in the shadows than they do in the light? Senator Paul argued that this mismatch, this fracture between private candor and public messaging, eroded trust at the very moment trust was most needed. He spoke, too, of withheld records, deleted emails, and agencies slow to comply with unanimous congressional mandates. Whether bureaucratic inertia or intentional resistance, the effect was the same: a sense that the government's most guarded discussions about pandemic risks, laboratory practices, and gain-of-function research remained locked behind a wall the public was not allowed to see. But the hearing was not merely an indictment. It was also a confrontation with scientific uncertainty, the messy, uncomfortable truth that the origins of COVID-19 remain unresolved. Senator Paul made that admission himself. No, we do not know with certainty where the virus came from. Yes, zoonotic spillover has happened before. Yes, a lab accident remains a possibility. And between those two poles lies the murky territory where science, politics, and public trust now collide. What today exposed is not just a debate about virology. It is a debate about transparency, about whether institutions can be trusted when their internal conversations tell a different story than their public statements, about whether we can build a system where scientific debate is not censored, where dissent is not labeled conspiracy, where the truth is not treated as a threat. For 3 years, the question of COVID-19's origins has been shrouded in suspicion, division, and silence. Today's hearing broke that silence. It forced the country to look directly at the discord between private uncertainty and public narrative. It opened a window into a moment when some of the most influential voices in science were not as sure as they seemed. And it asked us to consider what that means for the future of public trust. Because at its core, today was not about proving a theory. It was about confronting a system that struggled to separate science from politics, a system that sometimes chose narrative over nuance, a system that, in the urgency of crisis, too easily lost sight of transparency, the very thing democracy requires to function. And so, as the gavel fell and the room exhaled, one truth echoed: the search for answers is not over. Not for the scientists who still study the virus, not for the lawmakers demanding accountability, and not for the public who lived through the upheaval and deserve clarity. We may not yet know where COVID-19 began, but we do know this: sunlight matters. Accountability matters. Honest debate matters. And the promise that government will speak to us with the same candor it uses behind closed doors that matters most of all. If you believe in transparency, if you believe in evidence over silence, if you believe the American people deserve the full truth, then stay with us, stand with us, and subscribe to Liberal Congress, because exposing the truth is only possible when all of us demand it. The story of this pandemic is still being written, and together we will make sure every page sees the light.